Alright, welcome back to Fun with Dash Cams. This is going to be video 6 alpha, addendum to the 6 series, talking about Registrar Viewer. And here's why I wanted to do this. I wanted to use this as just a dumb example of, let's say I don't have any software available, but I have all these features. I did mention that I have multiple viewing options on this camera. I can do a taxicam configuration, or I can do a two-headed beast, or regular car DVR type configuration. 2+ cameras, and I have GPS. Now here's something I discovered very interesting to me about this camera. So I did a straight dump, just did USB mode, plugged it in, and as you can see here, I've named this the ADV2000B, dumped the video files, and I look in here immediately, and what you're going to notice is, first off, we've got a date timestamp very reminiscent of Allwinner, but you see, I'm not sure that this is an Allwinner. I think it might be, but I also think it might be a core logic-based video processor, but I don't know. But either way, we have an append file, an append on the file name, DRF0, and then we have versus DRF1. So we have a channel 0 and a channel 1. So the channel 0 is going to be our front-facing camera. The channel 1 is going to be, based on the selector switch, which of the two additional cameras we're going to be recording from. So you'll also notice something here is I have nothing but video files. You'll also notice that all the video files are stored in a common folder. So like you saw before, you saw examples of where we had everything broken out in a nice clean structure, like in the EO0801. You saw an example where you had most of the files for a video either in one channel, for one channel or the other, in an A folder or a B folder. Now we have everything just kind of klooched into one big folder. So it's here's where it's kind of up to you to kind of understand the naming convention. So in a system like this, you understand which camera's which. And you'll also notice something else. For the A winners, we saw particularly the F90G, we had a map file. For the 0801 based on the Umbrella, we had a GPS file. But here we only have video files, just like the Garmin, if you recall. Now this thing does have the ability to take photos. We would end up with a bunch of photos in here if I actually use that feature. It's kind of cumbersome on that particular unit to take pictures, but you could do that if you really wanted to, and they would appear as JPEGs, and they would be date time stamped just like everything else is. But like I wanted to mention, one thing you don't see is a GPS log, and that is because, best I can figure, and I've hunted around looking for hidden folders, and I've actually transcribed this folder across two different machines from two different OSs, Linux versus Windows. I cannot find any kind of hidden folders or any kind of other hidden information. So it appears that this, just like the Garmin, is encoding all the GPS data and in particular the front camera file, and I'm going to show you an example of that. So this is it already loaded up. We're just going to go ahead and close that out. We're going to go ahead and load up Registrar Viewer. Fortunately, it doesn't take very long for Registrar to pick up and group these files. So we're just going to select everything from the first channel. And you'll see here now it's starting to grind through previews, and just like that, it's actually already done it, so it's of course going to be a lot quicker. And you'll notice that it has grouped them together based upon trip. So this is me driving from home to the convenience store, and this is me driving from the convenience store and taking about a 23-minute drive, 23 minutes 13 seconds. You'll see here we have 0 miles traveled, but we have a speed indicator. So right here we actually captured a little bit of GPS information. Where's our log file? That's because it's encoded, and Registrar Viewer actually recognized that. It saw the metadata, and it therefore interpreted it, and it's going to give us our GPS track, which can be extracted. That's what's interesting about the Registrar Viewers. We can now, just like we could with the X3000, the X and the R310 and the X6000 and those SG-based chipsets, the way they record, here we can take it, but it's not just specific to any camera. As long if that information is in that file and it recognizes it, we can then actually extract that GPS track and export it into another mapping, some kind of a GIS application like Google Earth or something like that. and separate it from the video file for whatever analysis we need to do, or whatever you're looking at doing. So that's what I want to show you here. It took it about 2 minutes. So this is us coming out of the front gate and driving, and you'll notice here nothing's moving, and that's because you'll notice right here in our GPS, this is our speed indicator, this is our G-sensor data, our 3-axis G-sensor. We don't have any kind of speed information, any direction information. It's because GPS takes about 2 minutes. In fact, it's a little bit more than 2 minutes. A little past the 2-minute mark right here. So, we're just going through. We don't really have anything. And then all of a sudden, excuse me, right here, suddenly we have a GPS plot. Because at this point the GPS now is active, is reading, is validated its signal from the antenna. And now we can get a sense of where we're facing. Now right now it's trying to figure out where we're facing, but it kind of figured it. It seems to be okay. And now we have a speed plot. So let's go ahead and move on to the second example of the actual drive. We'll just go ahead and get on the highway. You can see that now I'm waiting for GPS. It's now it's no longer cold start, but it's still going to take it about 20 to 30 seconds. Actually, well, no, it still takes about 2 minutes, minute and a half to 2 minutes. And all of a sudden, we're going to pick up the track. So now we have a beginning and end for this whole trip, and we're following along. Plus, we got our speed data, direction, and we're still pulling our G-sensor data. Now, you'll notice you have two little gaps in here, and I want to show you this. I actually had 2 breaks. This is where I was doing the video selector and switching to different channels, and it's going to immediately jump from the old to the next, because when you flip that switch, it disrupts all recording. So you have to hit the selector on that joystick, the middle portion, to re-enable recording. And it picked right up, and I did it twice. This is where we had recording from the back, then I turned on the interior camera, and then I switched back to the rear camera so we could look at a good daylight sample. So just like right here, we're driving along, and all of a sudden it's going to skip ahead. So that's what also is kind of interesting about a registrar viewer, is that based on the GPS track and the stamp, the date time stamps, all that information together, it actually also tells you if you have a break in your recording, a break in the journey. I thought that was particularly interesting. That was just really cool. And just like most of these others, most other viewers or anything, all your data is going to be kludged between a start and a finish. So one track, this is a single trip, that's a single trip. Sometimes you have a lot of recordings that are broken up. These programs will sometimes list a whole lot of short trips. It may not be a full trip. It'll be like the first 3 video files, and then 2 more, and then maybe the rest. So that's something to keep in mind. But we had going to the convenience store and leaving the convenience store and going home. And of course, it did plot. It showed that I drove an average of 52.3 miles, 18.4 miles total round trip from the convenience store back to home. And at this point, we're actually going back home. And as you can see, going into this is what I wanted to show. One of the things I wanted to show is the video quality. We'll cover this. This being 720p, we got light coming into the camera, so it's playing with the iris a little bit. But 720p is the minimum you really want if you're trying to get detail like license plates. Remember that I'm not right next to this thing. This, from the perspective of the camera to this, is probably about 12 to 14 feet away. So remember, I've got a wide angle, and it's only 720p versus a 1080p. So 1080p, I would have a lot more definition. But again, as great as that CCD is, you're limited by your lighting conditions, how much light it can gather, how well it can adjust itself based on those lighting conditions. So, but here it shows that we've got a fairly decent view for this camera, for a $100 camera with a $100 unit with 3 cameras. I not only have many options, but I have pretty decent. So this would be a good, I'd say average, maybe about average quality. It's a typical 720 type camera. Anything cheaper than $80 for something like this, I wouldn't really want to use it. You're probably going to sacrifice quality. And anything that says like, you know, $40 at 720, that's a 2-camera unit, I would really definitely question the quality. So I'm going to go ahead and give it, these are now the reverse cameras, or the second DVR, second channel recordings, and it's going to group them. And this was actually part of that first track. And you'll notice there's no G-sensor data, there's no GPS data. So let's just go ahead on our big trip. You remember our 2 large gaps. Go ahead and head out on the road. And again, you notice, you know, I'm not getting any kind of a GPS track, no G-sensor data, and no speed plot, nothing. So this basically shows you that that front-facing camera, the video files rendered for that front-facing camera is what actually encodes the G-sensor and the GPS data. And I just thought that was really interesting, which also brings up a point. You know, if all you've got is a back angle to go on, you're not going to be able to reconstruct your trip. So most of these, I think, is about the same. I've done this with 4 other cameras, and they all seem to do it. It's that front channel, that channel number 1 or channel A or channel 0. That very first one is where all of that information goes if it's being encoded into the video stream directly. I hope that this is beneficial to you. And oh, I did want to cover one more thing. So this is my transition, looking at it. And this was me with a back camera, and I'm going to transition into the middle camera here in a little bit, into that interior view. Where is it? Okay, I've lost it. There it is. Timing's off on a little bit. But yeah, so, you know, and this is like you would normally expect. You know, this is a text cam. I'm getting a lot of bleeding from the windows because it's facing inside, trying to adjust itself to interior lighting, which is darker. It's in a shadow. So it's going to open up its iris, and it's going to pick up a lot more light. And therefore, it's going to overexpose anything coming in through the windows. And that's the monitor flickering, not the unit itself. You know, but, you know, being that your perspective, you know, how far, what you're trying to record, a lower resolution camera, as long as you're trying to record something relatively close, not trying to go off in the distance, you can get away with it. You know, you still get plenty of definition in here. It's way better than those the $50 taxi cam examples we were looking at. I don't know what you gain, but, you know, you still get a view, and this gives you an option. Back on the road, you can, as you can tell, is you have a little bit of granularity, a little bit of pixelization, because I'm expanding it to prove a point. A 720 is not going to be as grainy. This looks more like an old VHS interlaced video that you've encoded. You know, and it's a little blocky, and that's because, you know, this is literally going from an analog to a digital conversion on a lower resolution. And like we discussed before, we're not trying to capture high definition. If you want high definition, you're going to have to explore other options. For a setup like this, this is just to be able to capture that rear view. But overall, like I said, you know, a generic 2-channel or 3-channel camera in my case, throw it into Registrator viewer. It's amazing what you'll find. Hope that this was beneficial to you, and please have a good evening.